Sorry, this started right as the bell rang. We're looking at target 1.7. I can evaluate formulas to find the volume of prisms, cylinders, cones, and pyramids. So we're looking for the volume of 4 different shapes. Sorry, this is not showing. Okay. So the first thing we're going to look at is our definition of area. An area is the... Why is this not writing? Area. There we go. The amount of space, area is the amount of space inside the boundary of a two-dimensional object. So that's a flat object. Okay, it's like a piece of paper. That's really it. It's the only thing I can think of, but flat. Okay. So we have to think of our area formulas. And these you probably know. But the first one we're going to look at is the area of a rectangle. And the area of a rectangle is area equals length times width. And in this case, our length is that 5 and our width is 8. And we're just multiplying. You can always use a calculator to multiply. That's fine. So 5 times 8 is 40. Then we need our units, inches. And then since it's two-dimensional, our units are squared. So an area of a rectangle is just length times width. Area of a circle. The area of a circle is r squared. Okay. So the big thing is, what is this r? Okay. Well, r is this right here. And r is actually our radius. So I forgot a u. R equals radius. And what is the radius? Well, the radius is half the distance. Half the distance across the circle. And you can see here, right, I'm starting at the middle and going out, or going out and only going to the middle. It's only half of the distance across the circle. So here, again, pi is just a number. It's 3.14. It goes on forever, but it is just a number. So I'm not substituting anything in for it. And our r is that 7 squared. Now, when we do the calculations for this, we do not type pi in our calculator unless I specifically ask you to, which will be very rare. Okay, so if I go to Desmos, all I'm typing in my calculator is 7 squared. I'm not going to type pi in, so I just get 49. And the pi comes down. And this is in feet squared. So that will be true anytime we have a pi in our calculation. It just doesn't get typed in the calculator, and then you just write it like next to your answer. All right, the next thing we're looking for is volume. And volume is the amount of space inside the boundary of a three-dimensional object. So the first thing we're going to look at is this prism. Okay, and a prism is really just a box. Here's our lovely box. And the volume of a prism is length times width times height. I say LWH, right? But again, that means length, width, and height. So if we look at an example, here's our box. Again, volume equals length times width times height. And in this problem, we have our length here. So that's 5. Our width is here. So that's 2. And our height is here. So that's 3. Then I'm just multiplying all these together. Again, you can just type it in a calculator. Exactly how it looks, right? And we get 30. So that is 30. My unit is inches. And since it's volume, it's three-dimensional, so it's 30 inches cubed. So yeah, 30 inches cubed. All right, let's look at our next thing. Our next thing is the volume of a cylinder. Okay, so a cylinder is like a can, right? And the volume of a cylinder is volume equals pi r squared times h. So we have a radius and our height. Okay? Now, one thing I want to point out with these pictures here is it doesn't really matter. You can like turn your can over. The height is still that like length that connects the two circles. Okay, so we have a circle on top, a circle on bottom. Those are considered like our bases, and the length connecting them is our height, whether it got like knocked over or not. All right, so let's look at our example. We have two cylinders we're going to find the volume of here. So in our first example, we have volume equals pi r squared times h. Again, we don't replace pi. Our r, again, is halfway across the circle. So that's our 5, so that will be 5 squared. And again, our height connects the two circles. So that's that piece there. So we have pi times 5 squared times 18. So again, I'm going to type in just that 5 squared and then 18. And I get 450. And then that is 450. And then again, that pi just comes down. Since I didn't type it in my calculator, my unit is yards, and it's to the third power, yards cubed. All right, looking at our second one here, we have volume equals pi r squared times h. Pi just comes down. We have to know what our r is, our radius here. Again, remember the radius is halfway across your circle. Well, this 12, that line is going all the way across my circle. So my radius here is not 12, right? If 12 is going all the way across the circle, then halfway across the circle is going to be 6. Because 12 times 1/2 equals 6, right? So our radius here is 6. And then our height is this 3.6. So we have 6 squared times 3.6. We get 129.6. My unit is centimeters. And again, it's volume, so centimeters is cubed. We're working in 3 dimensions. Okay, that's it for cylinders. The biggest thing is remembering that if the line goes all the way across the circle, then it is half of that. Okay, so we do have to be careful with that. All right, volume of a pyramid, right? So a pyramid, like the pyramids of Egypt, right? So the difference here, how I know it's a pyramid is it's a rectangular base that just meets at a point, right? There's only one base. There's not like 2 bases. Okay? And the volume of a pyramid is volume equals 1/3 times length times width times height. The one thing to notice is the only difference between the volume of this and the volume of our prism is this 1/3. Okay? So what that means is if a prism and a pyramid have the same base, right? If the length and the width are the same in the 2 shapes, this is going to be 1/3 of the volume. Okay. So let's look at an example. So here's our prism, or sorry, our pyramid. And volume equals 1/3 times length times width times height. One-third just comes down. It's not a variable. We're not putting anything in for it. Our length is here, this 9.5. Our width is 8. And our height is right here. And that's at 9. And again, I'm just going to type all this into a calculator for sake of time. I'm just going to say we typed it into a calculator, and we get 228 centimeters cubed. And that's really it for pyramids. Okay, the last shape we're going to look at is a cone. And a cone is like an ice cream cone or a birthday hat, right? And again, it flips different ways, but it's still a cone. And again, same thing with our cylinder. If it's on the side, it's still, the height is kind of going that way. So even if it gets knocked over, gotta be careful there. And another thing is the difference between a cone and a cylinder, again, is there's only one circle, right? A cylinder had like 2 circles that were connected. This is one circle going to a point, okay? And the volume of a cone, again, the only difference is this 1/3. A cone is a third of the volume of a cylinder of the same size. Okay. So let's look at an example. Example A, we have our cone here. And again, the volume of a cone is volume equals 1/3 pi r squared times height. So again, 1/3 is nothing I plug in for. Pi is nothing I plug in for. We have to figure out what our radius is from our picture. Again, the radius is half of the line, and this line goes all the way across. I can see the line going from one side all the way to the other. So that means this radius is 3, again, because 6 times 1/2 equals 3. So that's 3 squared. And then our height here is 7. So here, again, the only thing I don't type into my calculator is this pi. I'm going to type everything else, including that 1/3. So I do 1 divided by 3. Make sure you come from out from underneath the fraction. And then we have 3 squared and 7. Okay. Again, make sure this looks exactly like the expression you have on your paper, other than the pi. Okay, and we get 21. That's 21 pi feet cubed. Our last example here, again, this one has been flipped over, but our volume, still 1/3. Is 1/3 pi r squared times height. And 1/3 doesn't change, the pi doesn't change. We have to figure out what our radius is. Here, the line does only go halfway across. That line doesn't go all the way across, so our radius is 8. Squared. And then our height, again, even though it's sideways, and it's hard to read, that is a 15. Oh. Again, I'm going to type in 1/3, 8 squared, and 15 into my calculator. And this looks exactly like my expression except for the pi. And we get 320. And that is our answer. 320 pi. Our unit is centimeters cubed. Okay, that's it.